The Dark Universe presents Horror Icons vs. Heroes, Dark Crossovers. Prologue. These stories are all a part of a new bracket of multiverses. This universe is a combination of Marvel and DC cinematic universes and the Dark Universe, which consists of horror icons and demons and vampires. Thanks to the new Time God for forming new and exciting worlds. This new world is called the Dark Violent Universe aka DVU. Episode 1, Deadpool vs. Jason. Chapter 1, The Unexpected Encounter. In the dark, ominous woods of Crystal Lake, a sense of dread hung heavy in the air. Camp Crystal Lake had long been abandoned, its grisly past a well-known legend in the small town nearby. Few dared to venture close, for fear of awakening the evil that lurked within. But on this particular night, a figure moved stealthily through the trees, the sound of heavy footsteps breaking the silence. Deadpool, the merc with a mouth, was on a mission. He had heard rumors of a malevolent force haunting these woods, a force that piqued his interest in ways that few things could. Meanwhile, deep within the murky depths of Crystal Lake, Jason Voorhees, the infamous masked killer, stirred from his slumber. He could sense a disturbance in his domain, an intruder trespassing where they did not belong. With a silent determination, he rose from the water, his machete gleaming in the moonlight. Chapter 2, The Battle Begins. Deadpool's sharp wit was a stark contrast to the silent menace of Jason Voorhees as the two came face to face in the clearing. Well, if it isn't Mr. Hockey Mask himself, Deadpool quipped, his dual pistols at the ready. Jason said nothing, his expression hidden behind the mask that had become his trademark. With a sudden burst of movement, Deadpool opened fire, the echoes of gunshots reverberating through the trees. But Jason was no ordinary foe. He lunged forward with unnatural speed, his machete swinging in a deadly arc. Deadpool narrowly dodged the blow, somersaulting out of harm's way with a smirk on his face. The battle raged on, each combatant proving to be a formidable opponent in their own right. Deadpool's acrobatic skills and quick wit matched against Jason's brute strength and relentless pursuit. It was a clash of titans, a test of wills that seemed destined to end in bloodshed. Chapter 3, Unforeseen Allies. As the fight between Deadpool and Jason reached a fever pitch, a new player entered the scene. From the shadows emerged a group of survivors, teenagers who had stumbled upon the scene of the epic showdown. Among them was a young woman named Sarah, her bravery overshadowed only by her determination to put an end to the violence unfolding before her eyes. Realizing that they stood no chance against the combined might of Deadpool and Jason, Sarah made a bold decision. With a steady hand, she raised a makeshift white flag, signaling for a temporary ceasefire. Surprisingly, both Deadpool and Jason halted their assault, their attention now focused on the unexpected turn of events. "We don't have to be enemies," Sarah declared, her voice unwavering. "There's a greater threat out there, one that we can only defeat if we work together." Despite their initial reluctance, Deadpool and Jason begrudgingly agreed to a truce, their common enemy looming large in the darkened forest. Little did they know that their alliance would be tested in ways they could never have imagined. Chapter 4, The True Enemy revealed. As the unlikely trio Deadpool, Jason, and Sarah ventured deeper into the heart of Crystal Lake, a sense of unease settled over them. Strange noises echoed through the trees, whispers of a malevolent presence that seemed to anticipate their every move. It was then that they caught a glimpse of their true enemy. A figure clad in black robes emerged from the shadows, his face obscured by a hood that cast a shadow over his features. His voice was a chilling whisper that sent shivers down their spines. "I am Malachi, the Dark Sorcerer, and I have been waiting for this moment." With a wave of his hand, Malachi summoned an army of undead creatures, zombies that emerged from the earth with a hunger for flesh. Deadpool, Jason, and Sarah stood back to back, ready to face this new threat head-on. The final battle had begun, and the fate of Crystal Lake hung in the balance. Chapter 5, Redemption and Sacrifice. As the battle raged on, it became clear that victory would come at a steep price. The forces of darkness seemed relentless, their numbers overwhelming even the combined might of Deadpool, Jason, and Sarah. But in the midst of chaos, a glimmer of hope emerged. Sarah, the once timid survivor, found within herself a strength she never knew she possessed. With a defiant cry, she charged into the fray, her determination unwavering. Her bravery inspired her allies, pushing them to fight harder, to stand united against the darkness that threatened to consume them. In a moment of selfless sacrifice, Sarah made the ultimate choice. With a steely gaze, she faced Malachi, the dark sorcerer, and unleashed a power long dormant within her. The force of her attack was like a beacon of light in the darkness, piercing through the shadow that had shrouded Crystal Lake for so long. As Malachi fell, defeated by the collective efforts of Deadpool, Jason, and Sarah, a sense of peace settled over the once embattled forest. Though scars remained, the balance had shifted in favor of the light. And as the survivors emerged from the shadows, a new dawn broke over Crystal Lake, the dawn filled with promise and the hope of redemption. Episode 2, Night of Fear, The Batman's Encounter with Pennywise. Prologue. In the small town of Derry, Maine, a sinister presence lurked in the shadows, preying on the innocent. Children had been disappearing without a trace, leaving behind a trail of fear and despair. The townsfolk whispered of a demon named Pennywise, who took the form of a clown to lure his victims into the depths of terror. But amidst the darkness, a beacon of hope emerged in the form of Bruce Wayne, the billionaire philanthropist known as Batman. Chapter 1, The Arrival. Bruce Wayne stood at the entrance of the newly constructed orphanage, a solemn expression on his face. The orphanage was dedicated to his former love, Rachel Dawes, who had tragically lost her life at the hands of criminals in Gotham City. Derry held a special place in Rachel's heart, and Bruce had chosen to honor her memory by giving back to the community where she was born. As Bruce mingled with the children, he couldn't shake off the sense of unease that hung in the air. The townspeople spoke in hushed tones, warning him of the sinister entity that haunted their streets. Intrigued by the tales of Pennywise, Bruce made a decision to uncover the truth behind the mystery, knowing that his alter ego, Batman, would be the key to solving the case. Chapter 2, The Dark Knight Rises. As night fell over Derry, Batman prowled the shadowed alleyways, his cape billowing behind him. The eerie silence was shattered by the sound of children's laughter echoing through the streets, a stark contrast to the fear that gripped the town. Following the trail of whispers, Batman found himself face to face with Pennywise, the malevolent clown who reveled in the fear of his victims. A deadly game of cat and mouse ensued between the Dark Knight and the ancient evil that plagued Derry. Batman's keen intellect and combat skills were put to the test as he delved deeper into the darkness that lurked beneath the surface. With each encounter, the stakes rose higher, leading to a final showdown that would determine the fate of the town and its inhabitants. Chapter 3, Allies and Adversaries. Joined by a fearless group of misfits known as the Losers Club, Batman uncovered the tragic history of Pennywise and the curse that bound him to Derry. Each member of the club had faced their own demons, both literal and metaphorical, but together they formed a formidable alliance against the ancient evil that threatened their home. As the bond between Batman and the Losers Club grew stronger, so too did their resolve to defeat Pennywise once and for all. But the clown's powers extended far beyond their wildest imaginations, testing the limits of their courage and determination. With the fate of Derry hanging in the balance, Batman and his newfound allies prepared for the ultimate battle against the fear that had plagued the town for centuries. Chapter 4: The final confrontation in the heart of Derry. Amidst the ruins of an abandoned circus, Batman and the Losers Club faced off against Pennywise in a battle that would decide the fate of the town and its inhabitants. The clown's true form was revealed, a monstrous entity born of nightmares and fueled by the fear of the innocent. With each blow, Batman and his allies chipped away at Pennywise's facade, exposing the vulnerability that lay beneath the terror. The children of Derry rallied together, drawing strength from their shared experiences and the bonds of friendship that had formed in the face of adversity. United in purpose, they unleashed a wave of courage and unity that threatened to banish Pennywise from their midst forever. Epilogue: Vast the first light of dawn broke over Derry, a sense of peace descended upon the town. The orphanage stood as a symbol of hope and renewal, a testament to the resilience of those who had faced their fears and emerged victorious. Bruce Wayne, now more than ever committed to his mission of justice, bid farewell to Derry, knowing that the legacy of Rachel Dawes would live on in the hearts of those she had touched. And so, the legend of Batman and the battle against Pennywise faded into memory, a tale whispered in the shadows of Derry and beyond. But the lessons learned and the bonds forged in the fires of adversity would endure, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, courage and unity could overcome the greatest of fears. Episode 3: The Punisher Rises, Legacy of Thorn. Chapter 1: The New Beginning. Frank Castle had never imagined himself living a peaceful life in the quiet town of Haddonfield. After all the chaos and bloodshed as the Punisher, he had found solace in the arms of his beloved wife, Jamie Lloyd. The nightmares of his past seemed to fade away as he embraced a new life filled with love and tranquility. Chapter 2: The Awakening. But little did Frank know, a sinister force was stirring in the shadows of Haddonfield. Michael Myers, Jamie's uncle, the relentless slasher who had been in a coma for years, suddenly awoke from his deep slumber. Driven by an insatiable thirst for blood, Michael was determined to hunt down Jamie and unleash his wrath upon her. Chapter 3: The Cult of Thorn. As Michael Myers set out on his deadly mission, he found allies in the most unexpected of places, the Cult of Thorn. A secret society that had worshipped the ancient curse that plagued Michael, the Cult of Thorn provided him with the power and resources to track down Jamie and fulfill his sinister destiny. Chapter 4: The Return of the Punisher. When Frank learned of Michael's awakening and the danger that loomed over his wife, he knew he had to become the Punisher once again. The skills and instincts that he thought he had left behind resurfaced as he donned his black armor and armed himself with an arsenal of weapons. Chapter 5: The Showdown. As the moon hung low in the sky, the final confrontation between the Punisher and Michael Myers drew near. The streets of Haddonfield became a battleground of good versus evil, as the two titans clashed in a brutal and relentless struggle for survival. Chapter 6: Legacy of Thorn. In the midst of the chaos and carnage, secrets long buried began to surface. The true nature of the curse that bound Michael Myers and the Cult of Thorn together was revealed, shedding light on the dark forces that had haunted Haddonfield for generations. Chapter 7: Redemption. In the end, it was not just a battle of strength and weapons, but a test of will and spirit. As the dust settled and the echoes of the final battle faded away, Frank Castle stood victorious, his love for Jamie proving to be the ultimate weapon against the darkness that had threatened to consume them. Epilogue: With Michael Myers defeated once and for all, Frank Castle and Jamie Lloyd could finally find peace in each other's arms. The legacy of Thorn may have left scars that would never fully heal, but they would endure, stronger together than they had ever been apart. The Punisher had risen one last time, not just as a force of vengeance, but as a beacon of hope in a world haunted by shadows. 1 year later, a knock on the door at Frank and Jamie's house. Frank goes to open the door and it is a woman with long blonde hair. She says her name is Laurie Strode and she is Jamie's mother. Jamie is confused. She always thought her mother was dead. Laurie began to explain she was attacked by the cult of Thorn while she and her then-husband Ben Traynor were driving through Chicago, and they were run off the road and she was thrown from the car, and she saw that the people who ran her off the road saw the car explode, thinking she died, so she decided to leave Jamie along with the babysitter and disappear in the world, thinking that she was safe, but she was wrong. Jamie is crying Laurie's arms and Frank goes upstairs to the nursery, and it reveals that Jamie and Frank have a son and they called him Nicky. Episode 4, title, Shadows of Harlem. Chapter 1, The Calm Before the Storm. As the sun set over the bustling streets of Harlem, Luke Cage strolled down the sidewalk, a sense of peace settling over him. After many battles and struggles, he had finally found a semblance of normalcy in his life. But little did he know, a dark shadow loomed on the horizon, ready to shatter the tranquility he held dear. Chapter 2, The Rise of Darkness. The first whispers of terror began to echo through the streets of Harlem as reports of unexplained deaths among teenagers flooded in. Luke's keen senses immediately went on high alert as he realized that something sinister was afoot in his beloved city. Determined to get to the bottom of this mystery, he began to investigate, following the trail of fear and despair that seemed to follow in the wake of these tragic events. Chapter 3, The Visitor from Chicago. It was during his investigation that Luke Cage encountered a troubled teenager from Chicago who seemed to hold the key to the dark forces at play. The boy's eyes held a haunted look as he spoke of the legend of Candyman, a malevolent entity who could be summoned by those desperate enough to seek his twisted brand of justice. Chapter 4, Unleashing the Horror. As the teenager's story spread like wildfire throughout New York, Luke Cage knew that they were dealing with something far more dangerous than mere superstition. The legend of Candyman was no mere fairy tale, it was a malevolent force that fed on fear and thrived on chaos. And now, thanks to the boy's unwitting actions, Candyman had been unleashed upon the unsuspecting city. Chapter 5, A Race Against Time. With each passing day, the death toll mounted, and the grip of terror tightened around Harlem. Luke Cage realized that he was the only one who could stop Candyman before it was too late. Armed with his unwavering courage and unbreakable will, he ventured into the heart of darkness, determined to confront the malevolent entity head-on. Chapter 6, The Battle for Harlem. As the streets of Harlem descended into chaos, Luke Cage faced off against Candyman in a battle that would determine the fate of the city. The air crackled with dark energy as the two titans clashed, each determined to emerge victorious in this deadly game of cat and mouse. Chapter 7, Redemption and Sacrifice. In the end, it was not brute strength or unwavering resolve that saved Harlem from the clutches of Candyman, but an act of selfless sacrifice. As Luke Cage stood face to face with the demonic entity, he realized that the only way to defeat him was to confront the darkness within himself. With a heavy heart and a steely resolve, he made the ultimate sacrifice, banishing Candyman back to the shadows from whence he came. Epilogue, A New Dawn. As the first light of dawn broke over Harlem, the city slowly began to heal from the wounds inflicted by Candyman's reign of terror. Luke Cage stood tall among the ruins, a silent guardian watching over his city once more. And though the scars of that fateful night would never fully fade, the people of Harlem knew that as long as Luke Cage stood watch, they would always have a hero to protect them from the shadows. Episode 5, Guardians of the Galaxy vs. The Vampire Horde. Chapter 1, The unlikely gathering. In the bustling streets of Mexico, a new bar called the Titty Twister had emerged as a hotspot for the most eclectic clientele in the galaxy. Thor, the mighty god of thunder, and the eccentric guardians of the galaxy found themselves enjoying a rare moment of relaxation in the vibrant atmosphere of the bar. As they settled into their seats, sipping on exotic drinks and engaging in lively banter, the Guardians couldn't help but notice the scantily clad servers and the provocative entertainment that surrounded them. Rocky, the tough-talking raccoon, exchanged a bemused look with Groot, the sentient tree, while Gamora, the deadly assassin, raised an eyebrow at Drax, the muscular warrior with a penchant for literal thinking. Chapter 2, The revelation. Their amusement turned to shock when Nebula, the estranged daughter of the Mad Titan Thanos and a former adversary of the Guardians, erupted in a fit of rage. She confronted a leering patron who had crossed a line, her cybernetic enhancements gleaming in the dimly lit bar. The tension in the air was palpable as Nebula's temper flared, and it seemed as though a fight was about to break out. Before the situation could escalate further, a sudden hush fell over the bar as the truth was revealed. The Titty Twister was not just any ordinary strip club, it was a sanctuary for vampires, and the patrons and performers alike bore the telltale signs of their supernatural nature. Chapter 3, The arrival of Blade. Just as confusion and fear gripped the Guardians, a new figure emerged from the shadows with a predatory grace. Blade, the legendary vampire hunter, strode into the bar with purpose, his silver sword glinting in the dim light. His arrival sparked a mixture of reactions among the patrons, some cowering in fear while others bared their fangs in defiance. Recognizing the grave danger they were in, the Guardians rallied together, their disparate personalities and abilities converging in a moment of unity. Thor summoned lightning to crackle ominously around him, his eyes flashing with determination. Rocket produced an arsenal of weapons from his specially crafted suit, while Groot extended his limbs menacingly. Gamora readied her swords, Drax clenched his fists, and Nebula steeled herself for the coming conflict. Chapter 4, The battle begins as Blade and the Guardians prepared for a confrontation with the vampire horde that surrounded them. The air was thick with tension and the promise of violence. The shrill cries of the vampires mingled with the defiant roars of the Guardians as they clashed in a whirlwind of blades, bullets, and brute force. Thor's lightning arced through the air, striking down vampires with righteous fury. Rocket's arsenal unleashed a hail of firepower, shredding through the undead foes with deadly precision. Groot's towering form became a bastion of defense, shielding his allies from harm while delivering devastating blows of his own. Gamora danced through the fray with lethal grace, her swords carving a path through the vampires with surgical precision. Drax's feral strength was unleashed in a series of bone-crushing strikes, each blow sending vampires flying. Nebula's cybernetic enhancements enhanced her combat prowess, turning her into a whirlwind of destruction. Chapter 5, The turning of the tide. Despite their valiant efforts, the Guardians found themselves outnumbered and outmatched by the relentless vampire horde. Blade fought alongside them with unmatched skill and determination, his sword a blur of motion as he carved a path through their enemies. Yet for every vampire they felled, two more seemed to take its place. Just when it seemed that all hope was lost, a sudden change in the tide of battle occurred. A brilliant flare of light erupted from the entrance of the bar, bathing the combatants in a blinding radiance. A figure stood in the doorway, his presence commanding and powerful. Chapter 6, The enigmatic stranger. As the light faded, the figure revealed himself to be none other than Morbius, the living vampire. Clad in tattered garments and exuding an aura of otherworldly allure, Morbius surveyed the chaos around him with a mixture of regret and resolve. With a whispered incantation, Morbius unleashed a wave of mystical energy that engulfed the vampires in a shimmering barrier, rendering them helpless. The Guardians and Blade seized the opportunity to press their advantage, striking down their foes with renewed vigor. Chapter 7, The alliance formed with the tide of battle turned in their favor. The Guardians, Blade, and Morbius united against the vampire horde in a display of unprecedented teamwork. Their combined strength and skill proved too much for the undead creatures to withstand, and soon the bar was cleared of their presence. In the aftermath of the conflict, a sense of wary camaraderie settled among the unlikely allies. Thor clasped Blade's hand in a gesture of respect, while Rocket shared a nod of acknowledgement with Morbius. Groot extended a limb in a gesture of friendship, which was reciprocated by Drax and Gamora. As they gathered together amidst the wreckage of the bar, the Guardians and their new allies realized that their encounter with the vampire horde was just the beginning of a much larger threat looming on the horizon. And so, with steely resolve and unbreakable spirit, they prepared to face whatever challenges awaited them in the cosmos. The adventures of the Guardians of the Galaxy, Blade, and Morbius had only just begun. Episode 6, title, The Lamentation of Clark Kent. Chapter 1, A normal life. Shattered Clark Kent had always been a man of extraordinary abilities, yet he chose to lead a seemingly normal life as a journalist at the Daily Planet. He was happily married to the love of his life, Lois Lane, and together they had built a peaceful existence in Metropolis. But all of that was about to change. It was a cold, dreary night when Clark received a tip about a series of gruesome murders that had been plaguing the city. The victims all seemed to have one thing in common: they had all come into possession of a mysterious puzzle box known as the Lament Configuration. Intrigued and sensing that there was more to the story than met the eye, Clark decided to investigate further. Little did he know that delving into the dark world of the Lament Configuration would unravel a nightmare beyond his wildest imagination. Chapter 2, The Puzzle Box. As Clark delved deeper into the investigation, he discovered that the Lament Configuration was no ordinary puzzle box. Legend had it that it was a gateway to another dimension, a realm of unimaginable horror ruled by a sinister figure known only as Pinhead. Whispers of the Cenobites, otherworldly beings who derived pleasure from the suffering of others, sent shivers down Clark's spine. He knew that he was in over his head, but his sense of justice compelled him to press on. Chapter 3, The Arrival of Pinhead. It was a stormy night when Clark first encountered Pinhead. The skies were alight with lightning as the mysterious figure materialized before him, his visage twisted into a grotesque smile. Clark Kent, Pinhead's voice was like ice, sending a chill down Clark's spine. You have stumbled into a game far beyond your comprehension. The Lament Configuration has chosen you as its pawn. Clark could feel the malevolence emanating from Pinhead, and he knew that he was facing a foe unlike any he had encountered before. With Lois by his side, he vowed to unravel the mystery behind the Lament Configuration and put an end to the terror that had befallen Metropolis. Chapter 4, The Dance of Death. As Clark delved deeper into the dark secrets surrounding the Lament Configuration, he realized that he was not the only one affected by its curse. Innocent lives were being claimed in the most gruesome of ways, their souls trapped in a hellish limbo created by the Cenobites. With each new revelation, the line between reality and nightmare blurred for Clark. His encounters with the Cenobites grew more frequent, each one more terrifying than the last. Yet, he knew that he could not back down, for the fate of not just Metropolis, but the entire world, hung in the balance. Chapter 5, The Final Showdown. As Clark raced against time to solve the mystery of the Lament Configuration, he realized that the key to stopping the Cenobites lay within himself. Drawing upon his inner strength and resolve, he prepared for the final showdown with Pinhead. The stage was set in an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of Metropolis. Thunder rumbled ominously in the distance as Clark and Pinhead faced off, the fate of the world hanging in the balance. In a battle that transcended the physical realm, Clark unleashed his full powers against Pinhead, determined to banish the Cenobites back to the hellish dimension from which they came. The warehouse trembled with the force of their confrontation, a clash of titans that would determine the future of mankind. As the dust settled and the echoes of their battle faded, Clark stood victorious. The Lament Configuration lay shattered at his feet, its curse broken once and for all. Metropolis was safe, but the memory of the horrors he had faced would haunt Clark for eternity. Epilogue. In the aftermath of the battle, Clark returned to his life as a journalist at the Daily Planet, but he knew that he would never be the same. The darkness he had faced had left a mark on his soul, a constant reminder of the thin line between good and evil. As he held Lois in his arms, he knew that their love was the light that would guide him through the darkest of times. And though the memory of Pinhead and the Cenobites would linger in the shadows of his mind, Clark Kent stood tall as a beacon of hope in a world that teetered on the brink of darkness. And so, the legend of the Lament Configuration and the mysterious figure known as Pinhead faded into obscurity, a cautionary tale of the dangers that lurked beyond the veil of reality. But for Clark Kent, the horrors he had faced would always be a part of him, a reminder of the fragility of the human spirit in the face of true evil. Episode 7, Claws and Clashes, The Xenomorphs Invasion. Chapter 1, The Lone Traveler. Logan, also known as Wolverine, had been traveling the world for years, trying to escape his past and the memories that haunted him. His healing factor and adamantium claws made him almost invincible, but his inner turmoil was a battle he couldn't seem to win. As he wandered through the icy wilderness of Snowbrook, Alaska, Logan sensed something was off. The air felt heavy with an unseen threat, sending a shiver down his spine. Little did he know, he was about to face his greatest challenge yet. Chapter 2, The Crash. In the dead of night, a blazing fire streaked across the sky, illuminating the snowy landscape as a spaceship crashed into the outskirts of Snowbrook. Unbeknownst to the locals, the vessel carried a horrifying cargo, facehuggers, the infamous creatures known for their deadly embrace. A group of campers had been unfortunate witnesses to the crash and, out of curiosity, approached the wreckage. Within moments, the facehuggers latched onto their unsuspecting victims, injecting them with their parasitic embryos. Chapter 3, The Unleashed Fury. The campers writhed in agony as the facehugger embryos gestated inside them, giving birth to nightmarish xenomorphs. With razor-sharp teeth and acid blood, the creatures tore through their hosts, craving destruction and death. The once peaceful town of Snowbrook descended into chaos as the xenomorphs rampaged through the streets, leaving a trail of carnage in their wake. Panic and fear gripped the remaining survivors as they struggled to comprehend the hellish nightmare that had befallen them. Chapter 4, The Predator's Hunt. Amidst the chaos, a cloaked figure emerged from the shadows, a predator, drawn to the scent of blood and battle. With advanced technology and unmatched hunting skills, the predator viewed the xenomorphs as formidable prey worthy of its attention. As the predator began its ruthless hunt, Logan sensed a familiar presence in the darkness. His keen senses and combat instincts told him that the predator was not an ally but a deadly adversary. With a ferocious snick, he extended his claws, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Chapter 5, The Battle Begins. Logan and the predator clashed in a savage melee, their skills and strengths evenly matched as they fought for dominance. The streets of Snowbrook echoed with the sound of metal on metal, a symphony of destruction that drew the attention of the xenomorphs. The creatures turned their attention towards the combatants, seeing them as obstacles to be eliminated. Logan and the predator begrudgingly formed a temporary alliance, realizing that their mutual survival depended on their ability to work together against a common enemy. Chapter 6, The Last Stand. As the sun rose over the snowy landscape, casting a golden hue over the battlefield, Logan and the predator stood back to back, surrounded by a horde of xenomorphs closing in for the kill. Their final stand had come, a test of strength, skill, and willpower like no other. With a primal roar, Logan unleashed his feral rage, his claws tearing through xenomorph flesh with deadly precision. The predator matched his ferocity, its advanced weaponry decimating the creatures with brutal efficiency. Together, they fought as a seamless team, a unity of man and alien against a common foe. As the last xenomorph fell, the town of Snowbrook lay in ruins, but a newfound respect had formed between the two warriors, a bond forged in the heat of battle. Epilogue. With the threat of the xenomorphs eradicated and the town of Snowbrook left in peace once more, Logan and the Predator went their separate ways, their paths diverging as quickly as they had converged. But deep down, both warriors knew that they would always be linked by the memories of the battle they had fought together, a testament to their strength, courage, and resilience in the face of insurmountable odds. And as Logan faded into the wilderness once more, his journey far from over, he couldn't help but wonder what other challenges awaited him in the vast expanse of the world. One thing was for certain: wherever there was danger, he would be there, ready to face it head-on with claws bared and heart unyielding. Episode 8, Shadows of the Creeper. Prologue. The sun was setting as Tony Stark and his beloved wife, Pepper Potts, drove along the endless stretch of highway. They had decided to take a break from their hectic lives and embark on a spontaneous road trip across the country, seeking solace in the freedom of the open road. Little did they know that their journey would take a dark and terrifying turn as they found themselves stranded in the eerie town of Ocala, Florida. Chapter 1, The haunting encounter. As their car sputtered to a stop on the outskirts of Ocala, Tony and Pepper exchanged worried glances. With no cell service in sight, they decided to explore the deserted town in search of help. The streets were eerily quiet, and a sense of dread hung in the air as they stumbled upon an old, decrepit cemetery dating back to the 1800s. Chapter 2, Unearthing the Past. Curiosity getting the best of them, Tony and Pepper ventured into the overgrown cemetery, their footsteps muffled by the soft earth beneath them. As they wandered among the crumbling headstones, they stumbled upon a mass grave, its markers weathered and illegible. A chill ran down their spines as they realized the gravity of the discovery. Chapter 3, The Creeper awakened suddenly. A cold wind swept through the cemetery, carrying with it a whispered menace that seemed to echo from the depths of the mass grave. Before their horrified eyes, the ground began to tremble and shift, and a figure clad in tattered rags emerged from the darkness. The creeper had awakened. Chapter 4, Dance of Shadows. With a bone-chilling cackle, the creeper fixed his gaze upon Tony and Pepper, his eyes burning with malevolent intent. As they turned to flee, they realized they were trapped in a macabre dance of shadows, where every turn only brought them closer to the unfathomable horror that pursued them. Chapter 5, Battle of Titans. In desperation, Tony activated a distress signal from his suiting up as Iron Man to confront the creeper in a spectacular clash of titans. The night sky erupted in a storm of iron and darkness as the two beings, one fueled by technology and the other by ancient evil, waged a battle that shook the very foundations of reality. Chapter 6, The Stalker's Pursuit. Although Tony managed to drive the creeper back into the depths of the cemetery, the nightmare was far from over. As they resumed their journey home to Los Angeles, shadows seemed to lurk at every corner, and a sense of unease settled over the city like a shroud. The creeper was following them. Chapter 7, Darkened Hearts. As the creeper unleashed his malevolence upon the unsuspecting denizens of Los Angeles, Tony and Pepper found themselves thrust into a race against time to stop the unstoppable. With each passing day, the body count rose and the darkness threatened to consume everything they held dear. Chapter 8, The Final Confrontation. Faced with the grim reality of their situation, Tony and Pepper knew that the only way to end the creeper's reign of terror was to confront him head-on. In a heart-stopping climax that would test their resolve to its very limits, they braved the shadows of their own fears to confront the darkness that threatened to engulf them. Epilogue. As the sun rose over the smoldering ruins of the final battlefield, Tony and Pepper stood hand in hand, their hearts heavy with the weight of all they had lost. The creeper had been vanquished, but the scars of the encounter would linger long after the shadows had lifted. And as they drove off into the sunrise, they knew that some nightmares never truly ended. And so, the tale of Tony Stark and Pepper Potts, and their harrowing encounter with the Creeper, passed into legend, a cautionary tale whispered in the dark corners of the world, a reminder of the thin line that separates the light from the shadows. Episode 9, A Nightmare Forever. Bruce Wayne comes to Springwood, Illinois for the grand opening of Wayne Enterprise, and he finds it a nice place to settle down and retire from all the crime fighting in Gotham, but it is just a thought, and Bruce attends a dinner party which is hosted by Mayor Jonathan Gray and is introduced to his daughter Tina, who is a student at Springwood University, and her friend Nancy Thompson, whose father is the chief of police. Bruce checks into a house he rented while he's staying in town to take care of business, and he has a woman with him as he takes off his suit, and he and the woman has sex. 30 minutes later, on the other side of town, Tina and her boyfriend Rob are making love in her apartment, and Tina falls asleep and she is dreaming she is in Boiler Room and is being chased by a dark burned figure with razor on his hands, and he catches up with her and brutally murders her. Bruce is in the shower and the woman is changing channels on the television. The woman calls out to Bruce and Bruce is drying off, and he sees that Tina Gray was brutally murdered, supposedly by her boyfriend Rob. Bruce goes to sleep and Tina Gray's ghost comes to him in a dream to tell him that Rob didn't kill her. She was murdered by a demon named Freddy Krueger, and Freddy pops and slices Tina's chest wide open. Bruce wakes up. Bruce starts researching about Freddy. It's a lot of unknown murders all over Springwood since 1960s. A lot of information about Krueger has been covered up by the town. Bruce contacts Alfred and tells him he needs his sources in MI6 to look at the files he's sending them. 3 hours later, Rob is killed in prison. Bruce can see that Freddy is targeting his victims in their sleep, and it looks like he going after Tina's friends. Bruce goes to sleep and to see if he can find Freddy and stop him. Freddy is stalking Nancy inside the Boiler Room, and Bruce is Batman in his dream. Batman sees Freddy about to slash Nancy, and Batman tackles Freddy away from her, knocking down the stairs. Batman gets up and now is face to face Freddy and Nancy. Watching from above, Freddy brands his razor claws and charges Batman, and Batman dodges his attacks and spins kick him to a wall. Batman spears Freddy through a wall. Freddy tries to slash Batman and counters Freddy and toss him to the floor, and Batman is punching the hell out Freddy. Nancy shouts out, "You can't kill him in the nightmare. You have to bring him into the real world." Nancy disappears. Freddy grabs Batman by the throat and starts slicing up Batman and tears off his mask. Bruce is woken up by Alfred, who had caught a train to help Bruce with dealing with Freddy. Alfred tells Bruce, 40 years ago I had fell in love with a woman in this town of Springwood who was in an abusive relationship, and the man was secretly murdering kids and teenagers all over town, and she told that me what she had witnessed, and I urged her to go to the police and she did. I was going to take her and her daughter away from this place. Her name was Loretta Krueger, and when he got off due to a unsigned search warrant, he killed her. So I killed him and the town helped me cover it. But Freddy still haunted the town and wanted revenge. Freddy has been killing people for years in this town, but I never knew how he did it, and now I know. Bruce says he got to find Nancy. Bruce goes to Nancy's house and Nancy tells Bruce that she had pulls out Freddy's hat, and she said, "If I can pull out his hat out of a dream, then I think I can get him out of the dream, and then you can stop him before he kills anyone else." Bruce decides to fly Nancy and himself to Gotham City, so if he does bring Freddy to the real world, he put him in Arkham Asylum with the other psychos. Bruce has occupied an empty wing of Arkham Asylum, and Nancy is sleeping on a bed and she is fighting Freddy, and minutes later she brings Freddy out, but he is not in the room. Freddy wakes up in a cell with a dangerous inmate, the Killer Croc, and Freddy gets thrown out of the cell. Alfred is watching the camera and finds Freddy walking through the asylum, and Batman tells Nancy to go to Alfred and he will take care of Freddy. Freddy and Batman has an epic fight in the hallways of Arkham Asylum, and Freddy trying to slice up Batman, and he is so much faster than Freddy. Batman is bashing up Freddy's body with boxing combination. Batman slams Freddy through a door which is a boiler room. Alfred calls Commissioner Gordon to bring back up to arrest Freddy. Freddy and Batman are fighting near an open fire, and Freddy throws Batman in the fire, and Freddy is laughing, and Batman comes rising out the fire, and Freddy is surprised, and Batman jumps on him and starting pounding Freddy into the floor and bashing his skull, and Nancy on the intercom says, "Don't kill him, remember, if you kill him he will come back to kill us in our dreams." Batman gets up. And Freddy says, "You should have killed me when you had a chance," and Freddy brands his razor glove, and Batman kicks the glove out of his hand and spin kicks him, and he lands on the floor, and Commissioner Gordon and the police arrests Freddy Krueger and puts him in chains and locks him in a cell in Arkham Asylum maximum security ward with his next to Lex Luthor. Nancy thanks Bruce for saving her and her town from Freddy, and she also says, "I'm sorry you took Freddy in your own hometown." Bruce says Gotham can handle anything. Freddy is in a safe place. Nancy kisses Bruce and she gets in a cab. Bruce gets in the car with Alfred. Alfred says, "Bruce, you look like you can use a good night's sleep." Bruce says, "I'm going to sleep for days." Episode 10, title, Dreams of Darkness, The Wrath of Freddy Krueger, Chapter 1, The Escape in the Shadows of the Night. Arkham Asylum stood silent and brooding. Behind its imposing walls, the most dangerous criminals of Gotham City were held captive, their twisted minds kept in check by the ever-watchful eyes of the guards. But on this fateful night, a sense of dread hung heavy in the air as whispers of an impending escape filled the corridors. Deep within the bowels of the asylum, Freddy Krueger, the nightmare maniac, stirred restlessly in his cell. Ever since his defeat at the hands of Batman 2 years ago, he had been biding his time, waiting for the perfect moment to strike back. And that moment had finally arrived. As the clock struck midnight, a sinister grin spread across Freddy's scarred face as he phased through the walls of his cell, his razor-sharp claws glinting in the dim light. With a maniacal cackle, he made his way through the maze-like corridors of Arkham, his laughter echoing off the walls like a chilling symphony of madness. Outside, the night was alive with the sounds of Gotham City, unaware of the terror that was about to be unleashed upon its unsuspecting citizens. As Freddy emerged from the shadows, a wave of fear washed over the city like a tidal wave, for they knew that the nightmare had returned. Chapter 2, The Killing Spree. Catwoman prowled the rooftops of Gotham, her senses on high alert as she hunted for her next big score. Little did she know that a more sinister predator lurked in the shadows, watching her every move with hungry eyes. As Catwoman made her way through the dark alleyways, a sudden chill ran down her spine, a feeling of unease settling in the pit of her stomach. And then, with a flash of claws and a haunting laugh, Freddy Krueger appeared before her, his burned visage twisted into a malevolent grin. Their ensuing battle was a spectacle of chaos and terror, as Freddy's dream powers clashed with Catwoman's cunning agility. But in the end, it was Freddy who emerged victorious, his claws dripping with blood as he claimed another victim in his killing spree. Across town, Wonder Woman sensed a disturbance in the fabric of reality, a dark presence that sent shivers down her immortal spine. As she raced to the scene of the crime, she found Catwoman's lifeless body, a grim reminder of the horrors that Freddy Krueger was capable of. Determined to put an end to this madness, Wonder Woman vowed to track down Freddy and bring him to justice, no matter the cost. Chapter 3, The Soul Eater. Meanwhile, deep within the depths of Arkham Asylum, the other inmates sensed Freddy's presence and knew that their chance for escape had come. Led by the charismatic Joker, they banded together in an unholy alliance, their twisted minds united in their desire for chaos and destruction. As Freddy joined forces with his newfound allies, he found himself growing even more powerful, his ability to consume the souls of his victims granting him unimaginable strength. With each innocent life he took, his dark powers surged to new heights, fueling his insatiable hunger for more. The streets of Gotham ran red with blood as Freddy and his deranged followers unleashed a reign of terror unlike anything the city had ever seen. The Dark Knight himself, Batman, struggled to keep pace with the escalating violence, his formidable skills put to the ultimate test against an enemy who could strike from beyond the realm of dreams. As the body count rose and the city descended into madness, a sense of hopelessness gripped the hearts of its citizens. But amidst the chaos and despair, a flicker of light remained, a beacon of courage and strength in the form of Wonder Woman, who stood ready to face Freddy Krueger in a battle that would determine the fate of Gotham itself. Chapter 4, the final showdown. The stage was set for the ultimate confrontation, as Freddy Krueger and Wonder Woman faced off in a battle that would shake the foundations of reality itself. With the fate of Gotham hanging in the balance, the two titans clashed in a cataclysmic struggle of wills and power. As Freddy unleashed his full fury upon Wonder Woman, she refused to back down, her Amazonian strength and valor standing firm against the onslaught of nightmares that threatened to consume her. With each blow and counterattack, the very fabric of the dream world trembled, its essence at risk of being torn asunder by the sheer magnitude of their conflict. But in the end, it was not brute force or dark sorcery that would decide the outcome of this epic showdown. It was the power of hope and resilience, the unbreakable spirit of a hero who refused to surrender to the darkness that sought to destroy her. With a final, defiant cry, Wonder Woman plunged deep into the heart of Freddy's nightmare realm, a realm of twisted dreams and unspeakable horrors. And there, in the deepest recesses of his twisted psyche, she found the source of his power, the souls of his countless victims trapped in a prison of eternal torment. In a moment of selfless sacrifice, Wonder Woman shattered the chains that bound these lost souls, releasing them from their eternal torment and robbing Freddy of his stolen power. And as the nightmare maniac's form began to fade into the darkness, a sense of peace and closure settled over Gotham City, its citizens free from the terror that had gripped them for so long. And so, the legend of Freddy Krueger came to a close, his reign of terror ended by the bravery and heroism of Wonder Woman. But as the sun rose over the horizon, casting its golden light upon the city, a new day dawned in Gotham, a day filled with hope and promise for a brighter tomorrow. Episode 11, Sledgehammer, The Hunt for Leatherface. Chapter 1, Origins. In the bustling city of Metropolis, there lived a man named Cameron Ford. By day, he was a mild-mannered private detective, but by night, he transformed into the powerful superhero known as Sledgehammer. Cameron possessed the superhuman abilities of both Superman and Wolverine: strength, invulnerability, rapid healing, and razor-sharp claws. His mission was to protect the innocent and bring justice to those who threatened the peace. Chapter 2, The Call for Help. One fateful evening, as Cameron was patrolling the city as Sledgehammer, he received a distress call from the renowned private investigator, Jessica Jones. A young girl had gone missing in the small town of Franklin, Texas, and all evidence pointed towards the notorious Leatherface and his family being responsible. Chapter 3, Journey to the Heart of Darkness. Without hesitation, Sledgehammer agreed to assist Jessica in finding the missing girl. Together, they embarked on a treacherous journey to the heart of darkness, where Leatherface and his deranged family resided in an isolated farmhouse deep in the Texas wilderness. Chapter 4, The Haunting Past. As they delved deeper into the twisted world of Leatherface, Sledgehammer's own haunting past resurfaced. Memories of his lost loved ones, taken from him by evil forces, fueled his determination to bring the missing girl home safely. Chapter 5, The Showdown. The tension escalated as Sledgehammer and Jessica infiltrated the farmhouse, their senses alert to the macabre horrors that awaited them. Leatherface and his family, a clan of cannibalistic killers, would stop at nothing to protect their dark secrets. Chapter 6, Unleashing the Fury. In a fierce battle that shook the very foundations of the farmhouse, Sledgehammer unleashed his full fury against Leatherface and his savage kin. His superhuman strength and claws tore through their defenses, leaving a trail of destruction in his wake. Chapter 7, Redemption and Hope. With the missing girl rescued and Leatherface defeated, a sense of redemption washed over Sledgehammer. He had confronted his demons and emerged victorious, proving that even in the face of unspeakable horrors, justice could prevail. Chapter 8, A New Beginning. As Sledgehammer bid farewell to Jessica Jones and the town of Franklin, Texas, he knew that his work as a superhero and a private detective was far from over. The world was full of darkness and danger, but with his unique abilities and unwavering resolve, Cameron Ford, aka Sledgehammer, would always be ready to face whatever challenges came his way. And so, the legend of Sledgehammer, the superhero with the combined powers of Superman and Wolverine, continued to grow, inspiring hope and fear in equal measure among those who dared to tread the path of darkness. Episode 12, The Divine Avenger. Chapter 1, The Hidden Identity. Raphael, the Archangel, concealed his true identity beneath a mask as he patrolled the dark, crime-ridden streets of the city. Known only as Mr. Violence, he struck fear into the hearts of evildoers who dared to cross his path. With the grace and power that came from his divine lineage, he fought tirelessly to rid the world of sin and corruption. Chapter 2, The Brotherly Bond. Raphael's actions did not go unnoticed by his fellow archangels, Michael, Gabriel, Lucifer, and Jophiel. While Michael and Gabriel supported his mission to bring justice to the world, Lucifer's jealousy burned brightly. Jophiel, the gentlest of them all, hoped for redemption for his brother despite his dark deeds. Chapter 3, The Encounter with the Survivors. One fateful night, while on patrol, Mr. Violence stumbled upon a group of survivors battling against the ruthless saviors. Led by the fearless Rick Grimes, they were fighting a losing battle against the overwhelming odds. Seeing their courage and determination, Raphael decided to lend them his aid. Chapter 4, The Alliance. Formed with Mr. Violence by their side, the survivors found new hope in their fight against the saviors. His angelic powers and combat skills turned the tide of the battle in their favor, earning the begrudging respect of Rick and his group. Together, they formed an alliance that would strike fear into the hearts of their enemies. Chapter 5, The Betrayal of Lucifer. As the survivors and Mr. Violence grew closer in their fight against the saviors, Lucifer saw an opportunity to sow discord among them. Using his powers of manipulation, he turned some of the survivors against each other, causing chaos and confusion within their ranks. Raphael knew he had to confront his brother before it was too late. Chapter 6, The Ultimate Showdown. In a dramatic showdown between the brothers, Lucifer revealed the truth about Mr. Violence's identity to the survivors. Shocked and dismayed, they turned against Raphael, believing him to be a deceiver. But when the saviors launched a brutal attack on their stronghold, Raphael had to prove his loyalty and valor in the face of overwhelming odds. Chapter 7, Redemption and Sacrifice. With the survivors on the brink of defeat, Raphael unleashed his full power as an archangel, decimating their enemies with a divine fury. In the aftermath of the battle, he revealed his true self to the survivors, earning their forgiveness and respect. But the victory came at a cost, as Raphael sacrificed himself to save those he had come to care for. Chapter 8, The Legacy lives on. Though Mr. Violence was no more, his legacy lived on in the hearts of the survivors. Inspired by his selfless sacrifice, they continued to fight against evil and tyranny, knowing that somewhere in the heavens, Raphael watched over them with pride. And so, the tale of the Divine Avenger passed into legend, a symbol of hope and justice in a world consumed by darkness. Epilogue. As the sun set on the horizon, a lone figure watched over the city from the rooftops, his wings shimmering in the fading light. Though he had laid down his mask and sword, Raphael, the archangel, knew that his work was far from over. With a steely determination in his eyes, he vowed to protect the innocent and fight for justice wherever it may lead him. And so, the saga of the Divine Avenger continued, a beacon of hope in a world torn apart by strife and conflict. Episode 13, Sledgehammer vs. Superman. Superman's rage. It had been 3 years since the world witnessed the tragic demise of Lois Lane, the love of Superman's life. Her death was no accident, it was meticulously orchestrated by the Joker, who had infiltrated Gotham City and sought to destroy Batman's life. Batman, blinded by rage and consumed by the desire to avenge the death of his parents, had unwittingly set the stage for Lois's downfall. The clown prince of crime, with a grin as wide as the Grinch's, had planted a bomb in the courthouse where Lois was testifying against Bane for his crimes. The explosion was designed to kill both Lois and Batman, but in a cruel twist of fate, it meant to only kill Lois. Superman, grieving and enraged, watched as the world crumbled under the weight of his wife's death. He blamed Batman, who had become an enemy of the state, for the death of his Lois. Batman, now a fugitive, was arrested and imprisoned in the notorious Arkham Asylum. Superman, now a guardian of justice turned tyrant, oversaw the execution of every man, woman, and child he deemed responsible for Lois's death. He believed that the world had become too corrupt, too dangerous, and his mission was to cleanse it of evil. The world lived in terror, always one wrong move away from being on Superman's hit list. Even the mighty Aquaman and Wonder Woman, who tried to stand up against Superman's tyranny, fell to his wrath. Aquaman was the first to be subdued, his trident shattered by a single punch from the Man of Steel. Wonder Woman, valiantly attempting to defend the world, was no match for Superman's strength and speed. With a flick of his wrist, he snapped her bracelets in half, rendering her powerless. The world was left in a state of utter chaos, with no one to challenge the might of Superman's rule. As months turned into years, Superman's reign became more brutal and unforgiving. The world lived in constant fear of his next move, and even the thought of defiance was enough to send people into hiding. Those who dared to speak against him were swiftly silenced, their names erased from history. The once proud heroes of the Justice League were now nothing more than forgotten relics of a bygone era, their legacies tarnished by the specter of Superman. Bleak landscape of despair that a new adversary emerged. His name was Cameron Ford, known to the world as Sledgehammer. Hailing from an alternate Earth, Ford was a mutant with the ability to heal from any wound in an astonishingly short time, akin to the Wolverine of Earth, 616. However, what set Ford apart was his unique physiology. His blood was imbued with kryptonite, a substance that normally weakened or outright killed Kryptonians. He had been genetically engineered as a countermeasure against Superman's kind, a weapon specifically designed to take down the Man of Steel. Ford, aware of the impending threat of Superman's wrath, had been in hiding, honing his skills and preparing for the day he would confront the world's most powerful being. He had become a legend among the remnants of the underground resistance, a beacon of hope for those who still dared to defy Superman's tyranny. As the world's foremost Kryptonian hunter, he was the only one who dared to stand against Superman, and he vowed to make Earth a free place once more. Ford, now fully equipped with a suit of advanced Kryptonian tech armor, emerged from the shadows to challenge Superman, armed with the knowledge of his weaknesses and a burning desire to avenge the countless lives lost under his rule. Meanwhile, the world's underground resistance, led by a grizzled, battle-weary Batman, began to rally against Superman's oppressive regime. Batman, having seen the world crumble under Superman's hand, had become a changed man. He realized that he could no longer stand idly by as justice was twisted into tyranny. With the help of Sledgehammer, who provided crucial intel on Superman's weaknesses, Batman began assembling a new league of heroes, ones who were unafraid to challenge the might of the world's strongest being. One by one, the remnants of the Justice League resurfaced, inspired by Batman's call for change. They were a diverse group, each bringing their own unique talents and abilities to the fight. Among them were the Green Arrow, who had survived the Purge, and a young, fearless Firestorm, whose powers were a testament to the enduring hope of humanity. Batman, aware of the dangers and the cost of their mission, knew that their fight against Superman would not be an easy one. They had to be cautious, strategic, and above all else, united in their cause. Batman and Sledgehammer forged an uneasy alliance, each bringing a different skill set to the table. Batman, with his tactical acumen and unparalleled combat skills, provided the leadership and strategy that the group needed. Sledgehammer, with his overwhelming strength and kryptonite-infused blood, served as the team's heavy hitter, capable of withstanding Superman's onslaught. They trained relentlessly, preparing for the day when they would finally confront Superman and end his reign. Yet, as the resistance grew stronger, so did Superman's paranoia. He became increasingly convinced that someone was plotting against him, that there were whispers of treachery in the wind. His sense of justice had been corrupted, replaced by a desire for control and vengeance. He began to hunt down those he suspected of conspiring against him, their names added to his ever-growing list of targets. The world watched in silent terror as Superman tore through the underground resistance, leaving a trail of destruction in his wake. The resistance, however, was not to be underestimated. With Batman's guidance, they launched a coordinated attack on Superman's fortress, an ancient Kryptonian structure that had been his refuge since his arrival on Earth. They knew that Superman's weakness to kryptonite was their key to victory, and they exploited it ruthlessly. Sledgehammer, with his unique blood, was the perfect weapon against Superman, and he made quick work of the Man of Steel's defenses. The battle that ensued was one for the ages, with Superman and Sledgehammer clashing in a display of raw power. It was a test of wills and a clash of ideologies, as Superman sought to maintain his dominion over Earth while Sledgehammer fought to free the world from his tyranny. Batman and the rest of the resistance provided support from the shadows, ensuring that Superman was unable to regroup or retreat. As the fight raged on, it became clear that the fate of the world hinged on the outcome of this epic duel. Amidst the chaos, Superman revealed a secret he had been hiding. He had known all along about Sledgehammer's blood and the kryptonite that coursed through his veins. He had been using it as a test, a trial by combat to see if anyone was worthy of standing against him. But Sledgehammer's powers were unique, a mutation of kryptonite that Superman had never encountered before. His blood was not merely a weakness but an advantage, a powerful tool that could be used to neutralize Superman's strength. In an epic confrontation, Superman and Sledgehammer engaged in a ferocious battle, each determined to emerge as the world's greatest hero. Sledgehammer, fueled by the rage of the world, fought with an intensity that shocked even Batman. Meanwhile, Batman, utilizing his tactical genius, provided support from the sidelines, coordinating strategies and ensuring the Resistance's safety. It was a dance of death, a ballet of destruction where every move could be the last. As the battle raged on, Superman began to falter, his strength waning against Sledgehammer's relentless onslaught. Frustrated and desperate, Superman unleashed a powerful energy surge, a beam of Kryptonian might that threatened to obliterate everything in its path. The world held its breath, waiting to see if this would be the end of Sledgehammer or if he would be the one to finally break Superman's resolve. But just as the beam was about to strike, Batman and the Resistance moved in, led by the strategic mind of the Dark Knight himself. They managed to activate a hidden chamber within Superman's fortress, unveiling a Phantom Zone projector that could imprison Superman within the timeless void of Krypton's dead star. Batman knew the consequences, that the Phantom Zone was a place from which there was no escape, but he chose to sacrifice himself for the greater good. Activating the device, Batman and the Resistance sealed Superman away, trapping him in the void of the Phantom Zone. The world rejoiced at the fall of their tyrant, but it was a bittersweet victory. Batman had given his life for the world, and the heroics of Sledgehammer had ensured that his sacrifice would not be in vain. The Resistance, now free from Superman's shadow, vowed to rebuild the world and honor the legacies of those who had fought against tyranny. With Superman vanquished, Sledgehammer emerged as the world's new protector, taking on the mantle of Earth's guardian. He had fought not for power or glory, but to honor the memory of Batman and the countless lives lost under Superman's rule. Sledgehammer, now the symbol of hope and justice, vowed to prevent the world from ever falling into chaos again. The Resistance, now a united front of heroes, looked to Sledgehammer for leadership and guidance, and he did not disappoint. Under Sledgehammer's watch, a new era dawned on Earth. The heroes of the Resistance, inspired by the selflessness of Batman and the strength of Sledgehammer, worked together to rebuild the world. They established a new Justice League, one that focused on peace, justice, and the well-being of all sentient beings. Sledgehammer became a symbol of hope, a beacon of strength that the world could rally around. Meanwhile, in the Phantom Zone, Superman was left to contemplate his actions. As he gazed upon the stars, he saw the error of his ways, the loss and destruction he had caused. He had sought to cleanse the world of evil, but in doing so, he had become the very tyrant he had fought against. Superman, now a prisoner of his own making, was forced to confront the consequences of his actions, and the weight of his devastating loss bore down upon him. As the story of Sledgehammer and the Resistance's triumph over tyranny was passed down through the ages, the world learned a valuable lesson. The story of Batman's sacrifice and Superman's fall served as a reminder that power can corrupt, and that the true measure of a hero is not the strength of their punches or the size of their power, but the depth of their convictions and the courage of their hearts. Episode 14, The Web of New Orleans Chapter 1, The Call for Help. Peter Parker, also known as Spider-Man, swung through the devastated streets of New Orleans. The once vibrant city was now a waterlogged ghost town, ravaged by a major hurricane that had left destruction and despair in its wake. Peter had volunteered to help with the relief efforts, using his superhuman strength and agility to rescue those trapped in the floodwaters. As Peter swung past abandoned buildings and overturned cars, he couldn't shake the feeling that something sinister was lurking in the murky waters below. Reports had been coming in of gators running wild, attacking anyone unlucky enough to cross their path. To make matters worse, it was Mardi Gras season, and the city was filled with unsuspecting tourists who were unaware of the danger that lurked beneath the surface. Chapter 2, The Wrong Turn. A group of reckless teenagers, fueled by the excitement of Mardi Gras, decided to venture off the beaten path and explore the outskirts of the city. Unbeknownst to them, they had taken a wrong turn that led them deep into Victor Crowley's swamp, a place shrouded in local legend and whispered tales of horror. As the teens stumbled through the dense foliage, their laughter turned to nervous whispers as they realized they were lost. The sounds of the city had faded into the distance, replaced by the eerie croaking of frogs and the distant howl of a gator. Chapter 3, The Legend of Victor Crowley. Victor Crowley was a name that struck fear into the hearts of the locals. Legend had it that he was a monstrous entity that dwelled in the depths of the swamp, emerging only to wreak havoc on unsuspecting intruders. Some said he was a vengeful spirit, cursed to roam the earth for eternity, while others claimed he was a grotesque mutation of man and beast. As darkness fell over the swamp, the teens huddled together, their nerves on edge as they heard rustling in the underbrush. Suddenly, Victor Crowley emerged from the shadows, his twisted form illuminated by the dim light of the moon. With a blood-curdling scream, he raised his weapon and the teens realized too late that they were not alone in the swamp. Chapter 4, The Killing Spree. Victor Crowley moved with inhuman speed, his eyes gleaming with malice as he closed in on the terrified teens. One by one, he struck them down with brutal efficiency, his weapon cutting through flesh and bone with ease. The air was filled with the agonized screams of the teenagers as they fought for their lives in the dark and unforgiving swamp. Peter Parker, sensing the danger, swung into action, determined to put an end to Victor Crowley's reign of terror. As Spider-Man, he was no stranger to facing formidable foes, but the malevolent presence of Crowley sent a chill down his spine. With quick thinking and lightning-fast reflexes, Spider-Man moved to protect the remaining teens, dodging Crowley's attacks with a mastery that only a superhero could possess. Chapter 5, The Battle for Survival. As the battle raged on between Spider-Man and Victor Crowley, the remaining teens watched in horror, their minds reeling from the unimaginable horror that unfolded before them. With each swing of his weapon, Crowley seemed to grow more powerful, his twisted form defying all reason and logic. But Spider-Man refused to back down, drawing on his inner strength and determination to protect the innocent. With a final, decisive blow, he incapacitated Crowley, sending the monstrous entity back into the murky depths from whence he came. The teens were safe once more, but the memory of that fateful night would haunt them for the rest of their days. Epilogue. As dawn broke over the city of New Orleans, Peter Parker stood amidst the ruins, his heart heavy with the knowledge of the evil that lurked in the shadows. The horrors of that night would soon be forgotten by the rest of the world, but for the teens who had witnessed it firsthand, it would forever be etched into their minds. As Spider-Man swung off into the sunrise, a silent guardian watching over the city, he knew that he would always be ready to answer the call for help, no matter the time or place. For in a world filled with darkness and despair, there would always be a hero to bring light and hope to those in need. Episode 15, Shadows of Crystal Lake. Prologue. Crystal Lake, a place once known for its serene beauty, had now turned into a hunting ground for the merciless killer, Jason Voorhees. The infamous Camp Crystal Lake had long been abandoned, but the curse of Jason Voorhees lived on. As the sun set behind the dark, foreboding trees, a group of high school seniors boarded a luxury cruise ship, unaware of the horrors that awaited them. Chapter 1, The cruise ship, named Serenity, glided through the calm waters of Crystal Lake, carrying 59 high school seniors on a journey to New York City. Laughter and music filled the air as the students danced and enjoyed their last days of freedom before graduation. Little did they know that their carefree spirits would soon be shattered by the lurking presence of Jason Voorhees. Among the students was Sarah, a kind-hearted and adventurous young woman who had always been drawn to the mysteries of Crystal Lake. As she leaned against the railing of the ship, staring out into the dark waters, a chill ran down her spine. She couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. Chapter 2, The Shadow in the Woods. As night fell, a group of students decided to explore the nearby shore of Crystal Lake. Sarah, along with her friends Mike, Jenna, and Alex, stepped onto the sandy beach, their footsteps muffled by the whispering pines. The air was thick with the scent of pine and decay, sending shivers down their spines. Suddenly, a rustling in the bushes caught their attention. Sarah's heart raced as she saw a dark shadow moving among the trees. Panic spread through the group as they realized they were not alone. Before they could react, a figure emerged from the darkness, Jason Voorhees, his mask a grotesque parody of a human face, his machete glinting in the moonlight. Chapter 3, The Hunt Begins. Screams echoed through the night as Jason Voorhees descended upon the unsuspecting students. Chaos erupted as the group scattered, trying to escape the relentless killer. Sarah and her friends ran for their lives, their only thought to survive the night. As they ran, Sarah stumbled and fell, her heart pounding in her chest. She turned to see Jason Voorhees looming over her, his machete raised high. In that moment of terror, a blur of movement caught her eye, a figure dressed in black, moving with the speed and grace of a predator. It was Matt Murdock, the Daredevil, drawn by the cries of the students in distress. Chapter 4, A Hero's Sacrifice. With a fierce battle cry, Daredevil launched himself at Jason Voorhees, his fists aglow as he struck out with determination and skill. The students watched in awe as the two titans clashed, the sounds of their struggle echoing through the night. Sarah, her friends, and the remaining students huddled together, their eyes wide with fear and astonishment. Daredevil fought bravely, his senses heightened by years of training and discipline. But Jason Voorhees was no ordinary adversary, he was a force of pure evil, fueled by rage and the dark power of Crystal Lake. As the battle raged on, Sarah knew that they were witnessing a fight for their lives. Daredevil's bravery and skill were unmatched, but even he could not hold out against the relentless fury of Jason Voorhees. In a final, desperate act of courage, Daredevil pushed Jason Voorhees back, giving the students a chance to escape. Chapter 5, Shadows of Crystal Lake. The remaining students fled through the dark woods, their hearts pounding with fear and adrenaline. They could hear the sounds of the battle behind them, the clash of steel and the echoes of pain and struggle. But they dared not look back, for fear of what they might see. As they ran, Sarah felt a sense of determination rise within her. She knew that they could not outrun Jason Voorhees forever, they needed a plan, a way to defeat the evil that haunted Crystal Lake. With a steely resolve, she turned to her friends and the other students, her voice strong and unwavering. "We can't let fear control us," Sarah said, her eyes blazing with determination. "We have to stand together and fight back. We can't let Jason Voorhees win." And so, as the shadows of Crystal Lake closed in around them, Sarah and her friends prepared to make their final stand against the darkness that threatened to consume them. With the echo of Daredevil's sacrifice still ringing in their ears, they braced themselves for the battle ahead, knowing that their survival would depend on their courage, their unity, and their unbreakable spirit. Episode 16, Shadows of Fury. Chapter 1, The Final Stand. The eerie silence of the desolate Camp Crystal Lake was shattered by the echoing sound of footsteps. Sarah's heart pounded in her chest as she ran through the darkened woods, her breath coming in ragged gasps. She had narrowly escaped the clutches of the merciless killer, Jason Voorhees, but she knew he would not stop until he had claimed her life. Just moments ago, Daredevil had sacrificed himself to save Sarah and her friends from certain death. She could still hear his final words ringing in her ears, urging her to run and never look back. But now, with her friends lying lifeless at Jason's feet, Sarah was filled with a mix of grief and fury. She vowed to make Daredevil's sacrifice count, to survive and put an end to Jason's reign of terror once and for all. As Sarah stumbled over the uneven ground, the moonlight casting eerie shadows around her, she suddenly felt a presence behind her. She whirled around, her eyes widening in fear as she came face to face with the towering figure of Jason Voorhees, his hockey mask glinting in the dim light. His machete gleamed wickedly as he raised it, ready to strike. But just as Sarah braced herself for the fatal blow, a new figure emerged from the darkness. Clad in a dark cloak and wielding twin swords, the mysterious stranger stepped between Sarah and Jason, his eyes burning with righteous fury. Chapter 2: The Vigilantes return. Sarah watched in awe as the newcomer faced off against Jason Voorhees, his movements swift and controlled. She recognized him from the stories she had heard, the masked vigilante known as Mr. Violence, who had once battled Jason and emerged victorious. But she had never imagined she would meet him in person, let alone witness him risking his life to protect her. As the two titans clashed, their swords ringing out in a deadly dance, Sarah took the opportunity to catch her breath and gather her thoughts. She knew she had to do something to help, to assist the vigilante in defeating Jason once and for all. With newfound determination, she searched the forest floor for any weapon she could use in the fight. Meanwhile, Raphael, the archangel beneath the mask of Mr. Violence, felt a surge of adrenaline as he faced off against his old foe. He remembered their previous battles, the lives lost and the horrors unleashed by Jason's unrelenting rage. But this time would be different, he vowed. This time, he would not let Jason escape to claim more innocent lives. As the battle raged on, Sarah found a sturdy branch and gripped it tightly in her hands. With a steely resolve, she joined the fray, striking out at Jason with all her might. Together, the unlikely trio fought against the unstoppable force of evil, their determination unwavering in the face of darkness. Chapter 3: Redemption and Reckoning. The sounds of battle echoed through the trees, a symphony of clashing metal and grunts of effort. Sarah, Raphael, and Jason were locked in a deadly dance, each move calculated and precise. But despite their best efforts, it seemed like Jason would not be easily defeated. As the fight dragged on, Sarah felt a sense of desperation creeping in. She knew that they were outnumbered and outmatched, that Jason's strength seemed never-ending. But just as she felt her resolve waver, Raphael's voice cut through the chaos. "We cannot give up," he declared, his eyes blazing with determination. "Together, we can overcome even the darkest of evils. Believe in yourself, Sarah. Believe that we can triumph." With Raphael's words ringing in her ears, Sarah renewed her attack, striking out at Jason with all her might. She refused to let fear paralyze her, refused to let despair cloud her judgment. She fought with a fierceness she never knew she possessed, her every move fueled by the memory of her fallen friends and Daredevil's sacrifice. And then, in a moment of blinding clarity, Sarah saw her opportunity. With a cry of defiance, she lunged forward, driving her makeshift weapon deep into Jason's chest. The killer staggered back, his masked face contorted in surprise and pain. As Jason fell to the ground, defeated at last, Sarah felt a rush of relief wash over her. The nightmare was finally over, the shadow of death lifted from Camp Crystal Lake. She looked to Raphael, her eyes shining with gratitude and respect. He had been her savior, her guiding light in the darkest of times. And as the first light of dawn broke over the horizon, Sarah knew that she had found redemption and purpose in the face of unimaginable evil. With Raphael by her side, she was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, to continue the fight for justice and peace in a world plagued by shadows of fury. Episode 17, Hunted, The Deadly Pursuit. Prologue. In the dark shadows of the forest, Rocket the raccoon prowled silently, his sharp eyes scanning the undergrowth for any sign of movement. He knew he was getting closer to his most dangerous enemy, Chucky the killer doll. The rumors of Chucky's gruesome killings had spread far and wide, striking fear into the hearts of even the bravest creatures of the forest. But Rocket was determined to put an end to Chucky's reign of terror once and for all. As he crept through the trees, his mind raced with thoughts of revenge and justice. Little did he know that fate had a twisted plan in store for him, one that would intertwine his destiny with another hunter on a deadly pursuit. Chapter 1, Rocket's Resolve. Rocket crouched low to the ground, his keen senses on high alert as he followed the trail of destruction left by Chucky. The once peaceful forest was now a haunting scene of carnage, with twisted branches and blood-stained leaves bearing witness to the killer doll's savagery. Determined to stop Chucky before more innocent lives were lost, Rocket tightened his grip on his trusty dagger and pressed on. Every rustle of the leaves, every creak of a branch made his heart race with anticipation and dread. But he pushed forward, fueled by the burning fire of vengeance that blazed within him. As he drew closer to Chucky's lair, Rocket knew that the final confrontation was imminent. Steeling himself for the battle ahead, he whispered a silent vow to bring justice to the forest and make Chucky pay for his crimes. Chapter 2, Nebula's Quest. Meanwhile, deep within the shadowy realm of the forest, Nebula moved swiftly and silently, her silver hair shimmering like moonlight as she pursued her own deadly foe. Leprechaun, the elusive and sinister creature, had taken something precious from her, someone she cared deeply about. The memory of that fateful night haunted Nebula's every step, driving her to seek vengeance with a relentless determination. As she followed the trail of clues left by Leprechaun, her heart burned with a fierce resolve to make him pay for his heinous act. But as Nebula ventured deeper into the heart of the forest, she sensed that she was not alone in her quest for justice. A mysterious presence lingered in the air, its presence as chilling as the cold touch of death. Little did she know that her path would soon cross with another hunter, bound by a common enemy and a shared desire for retribution. Chapter 3, The Hunter's Encounter. It was a moonlit night when Rocket and Nebula's paths finally converged, their eyes meeting in a silent but understanding acknowledgement of their shared purpose. The forest seemed to hold its breath as the two hunters stood face to face, united by a common goal to confront their deadliest foes and avenge the ones they had lost. In that moment, an unspoken bond formed between Rocket and Nebula, a connection forged in the crucible of grief and determination. Without exchanging a word, they knew that their destinies were intertwined, their fates entwined in a dangerous dance of predator and prey. Together, they set out on a treacherous journey to track down Chucky and Leprechaun, their minds focused on the task ahead and their hearts burning with the desire for justice. As they delved deeper into the dark heart of the forest, they knew that the true test of their strength and courage lay ahead, in a final showdown that would determine the fate of all who dwelt in the shadows. Episode 18, Dead Night Evil. Chapter 1, The Unleashing. It was a dark and stormy night in downtown L.A. Rain pounded against the windows of the apartment complex, casting eerie shadows in the hallway. The residents huddled in their apartments, seeking solace from the raging elements outside. In apartment 403, a young man named Derek stumbled upon an ancient book hidden in the depths of the building's basement. Curiosity getting the better of him, he began to read aloud from the pages, unaware of the dark forces he was about to unleash. As the incantations echoed through the building, a sense of dread descended upon the residents. Doors creaked open and shadows danced in the dimly lit corridors. The Deadites, malevolent spirits from beyond the grave, were awakened by Derek's unwitting actions. Chapter 2, The Infection Spreads. One by one, the residents of the apartment complex fell victim to the insidious influence of the Deadites. Their eyes turned a sickly shade of red, their movements jerky and unnatural. They roamed the hallways, their moans echoing through the building like a symphony of the damned. Among the chaos, a mother named Sarah and her two teenage daughters, Emily and Mia, found themselves trapped on the top floor of the building. Desperate to survive, they barricaded themselves in their apartment, hoping to wait out the night until help arrived. Meanwhile, on the same floor, a mysterious man known only as Logan lurked in the shadows. A loner by nature, he had been living in the building for months, keeping a low profile and avoiding contact with his neighbors. But now, faced with the horrors unleashed by Derek's actions, he knew he had no choice but to confront the evil that lurked below. Chapter 3: The Hunter Becomes the Hunted. Logan, a man with a haunted past and a set of deadly claws, knew all too well the dangers of the supernatural. His senses tingled with the presence of the Deadites below, their malevolent energy seeping through the cracks in the floor. Steeling himself for the battle ahead, he ventured down into the depths of the building, his keen eyes scanning for any sign of the infected. As he made his way through the dimly lit corridors, the stench of decay filled his nostrils, and he saw glimpses of shadowy figures moving just out of sight. The Deadites sensed his presence and converged on him with a ferocity that chilled his bones. But Logan was no ordinary man. With a primal roar, he unsheathed his claws and leaped into the fray, his movements a blur of steel and fury. The Deadites fell before him, their twisted forms no match for his raw power and unyielding resolve. Chapter 4: A Mother's Courage. On the top floor, Sarah huddled with her daughters, their fear palpable in the air. The sounds of battle raged below, and the building shook with the force of the conflict. But Sarah knew that they were not safe, that the Deadites would soon come for them as well. Gripping a knife in her hand, she made a silent vow to protect her daughters at all costs. With a steely resolve, she ventured out into the hallway, her eyes scanning for any sign of the infected. As the Deadites closed in around her, Sarah fought with a ferocity born of love and desperation. Her blade sliced through their rotting flesh, each strike a testament to her unwavering courage. Emily and Mia looked on in awe, their mother's bravery inspiring them to stand tall in the face of their nightmarish ordeal. Chapter 5: The Final Confrontation. As the battle raged on, Logan and Sarah's paths converged in the heart of the apartment complex. Their eyes locked in a silent understanding, two warriors united in their mission to rid the building of the Deadites once and for all. Together, they fought side by side, their skills complementing each other, in a deadly dance of survival. The Deadites threw wave after wave of twisted abominations at them, but Logan's claws and Sarah's blade proved to be a formidable match for the unholy horde. Finally, as the last of the Deadites fell beneath their combined onslaught, a sense of relief washed over the survivors. The building fell silent, the echoes of battle fading into the night. Logan turned to Sarah and her daughters, a ghost of a smile on his lips. In that moment, they knew that they had formed a bond forged in the fires of adversity, a bond that would endure long after the shadows of the dead had faded into memory. And so, as dawn broke over downtown L.A., the residents of the apartment complex emerged from the darkness, their spirits strengthened by the trials they had faced. The shadows of the dead may linger, but they knew that as long as they stood together, they would always find the light to guide them home. Episode 19, title: The Jigsaw Cult. Chapter 1, The Legacy of Jigsaw. In the dark, twisted world of John Kramer, also known as Jigsaw, a new threat loomed. Having spent years punishing those he deemed unworthy of their lives, Jigsaw had now turned his attention to a new set of targets, supervillains. With Lex Luthor already falling prey to his sadistic games, the world shuddered at the thought of who would be next. Chapter 2, The Rise of the Jigsaw Cult. Word of Jigsaw's latest project had spread like wildfire through the criminal underworld. His cult, dedicated to carrying out his dark work, began to grow in numbers as fear and paranoia gripped even the bravest of souls. Amanda Waller, a seasoned government agent with a keen eye for danger, knew that desperate times called for desperate measures. Chapter 3, The Call to Arms. Amanda Waller wasted no time assembling a team of the most skilled and dangerous individuals she could find. Sledgehammer, a mysterious figure with powers akin to Superman and the ability to regenerate from even the most fatal of injuries, was the first to join. Alongside him came Ghost Rider, a spirit of vengeance bound to a flaming skull, Harley Quinn, a wild and unpredictable force of chaos, Poison Ivy, a seductress with deadly plant-based abilities, and Winter Soldier, a skilled assassin with a troubled past. Chapter 4, The hunt begins as the team set out to track down Jigsaw and his cult. They knew they were in for the fight of their lives. The streets ran red with the blood of those who had crossed paths with the cult, and Nick Fury, a respected leader among heroes, had been captured. The stakes had never been higher, and failure was not an option. Chapter 5, Unraveling the mystery. As Sledgehammer and his team delved deeper into the twisted world of Jigsaw, they began to uncover dark secrets and hidden agendas. The cult's ultimate goal remained shrouded in mystery, but one thing was clear: they would stop at nothing to achieve it. With each new clue came new dangers, and the team found themselves pushed to their limits. Chapter 6, The final showdown. In a climactic battle that shook the very foundations of reality, Sledgehammer and his team faced off against Jigsaw and his cult in a fight for the fate of the world. With Nick Fury's life hanging in the balance, the heroes knew that this would be their greatest challenge yet. Blood was shed, sacrifices were made, but in the end, only one side would emerge victorious. Epilogue. As the dust settled and the screams of the fallen faded into silence, a new chapter began. The world had been forever changed by the events that had transpired, and the name of Jigsaw would be whispered in fear for generations to come. But as long as there were heroes willing to stand against the darkness, hope would always prevail. The last episode, Deadpool meets Mr. Violence. Chapter 1, The final showdown. The air was heavy with the stench of blood and sulfur as Wade Wilson, known to most as the mercenary Deadpool, stood over the broken body of Anthony Vaylor, the firstborn son of the devil. For years, they had been locked in a vicious war, each one trying to outwit and outmatch the other. But today, Deadpool had emerged victorious, his sword stained with the blood of his nemesis. As he stood there, catching his breath, a dark shadow fell over him. He looked up to see Lucifer, the fallen angel himself, standing before him, rage and fury burning in his eyes. "You will pay for this, Deadpool," Lucifer growled, his voice like thunder. "Your soul belongs to me now." Deadpool knew he was in deep trouble. Lucifer was not one to be trifled with, and he knew that the devil would stop at nothing to avenge the death of his son. Desperate for help, Deadpool reached out to the only being he thought could stand a chance against Lucifer: Raphael, the archangel known as Mr. Violence. Chapter 2, The deal with an angel. Raphael was known throughout the realms as a fierce and formidable warrior, second only to his brother Lucifer in power. When Deadpool approached him with a plea for help, Raphael was intrigued. He had always admired Deadpool's tenacity and skill in battle, and he saw an opportunity to finally put a stop to his brother's reign of terror. After much persuasion, Raphael agreed to help Deadpool in exchange for a favor to be named later. Together, they hatched a plan to lure Lucifer into a trap and confront him once and for all. But they knew it would not be easy. Lucifer was cunning and ruthless, and he would stop at nothing to destroy them both. As they prepared for the final showdown, Deadpool and Raphael gathered their allies and made their stand. The fate of the realms hung in the balance as they waited for Lucifer to make his move, knowing that only one would emerge victorious from this epic battle of good and evil. Chapter 3, The Battle of the Ages. The battlefield was a swirling maelstrom of chaos and destruction as Lucifer descended upon them, his dark wings outstretched and his eyes blazing with fury. Deadpool and Raphael stood shoulder to shoulder, their weapons drawn and their determination steely. The battle that followed was unlike anything the realms had ever seen. Lucifer's power was immense, his dark magics twisting and warping the very fabric of reality. But Deadpool and Raphael fought back with everything they had, their skill and determination matched only by their sheer will to survive. As the battle raged on, Deadpool found himself face to face with Lucifer, their swords clashing in a symphony of steel. The devil's laughter echoed in his ears as he pushed Deadpool back, his strength overwhelming. But just as all seemed lost, Raphael leaped into the fray, his divine power shining like a beacon in the darkness. With a mighty roar, he struck Lucifer down, his sword piercing the devil's heart and banishing him back to the depths of hell. Chapter 4: Redemption and Sacrifice. With Lucifer defeated and the realm saved from destruction, Deadpool and Raphael stood victorious, their bodies weary but their spirits strong. As they looked out over the battlefield, they knew that their journey was far from over. In the aftermath of the battle, Deadpool made good on his promise to Raphael, repaying the Archangel for his help in defeating Lucifer. But as he did, a sense of unease settled in his heart. He knew that the life of a mercenary was filled with danger and uncertainty, and that he could never truly escape his past. And so, as the sun set on the battlefield, Deadpool made a decision to leave behind his life of violence and bloodshed, and to seek redemption for his sins. With Raphael by his side, he set out on a new journey, one filled with hope and the promise of a better future. As they walked into the sunset, the echoes of their battle fading into the distance, Deadpool knew that his adventures were far from over. But for now, he was content in the knowledge that he had done something good, something right. And so, the legend of Wade Wilson, the mercenary known as Deadpool, lived on the tale of redemption, sacrifice, and the enduring power of friendship in the face of darkness. These stories are thanks to the newfound universes and welcome to the DVU. The end of Season 1. Hopefully to be directed by the following: Zack Snyder, Denis Villeneuve, James Wan, Rob Zombie, Matt Reeves, Ben Affleck and Patty Jenkins. *** Note: this novel is a work of fiction and any resemblance to actual events or persons, living or dead, is purely coincidental.